So the final element of this video that I want to go over is a helpful handout that I found a few years ago that I think just covers some information, that's some good last-minute reminders, and provides some resources that I think are helpful just on one sheet. So this is the passage. I have no idea who Mr. Gunner is, but I do think that AP students everywhere owe him a debt, because this is just helpful. So you have a guide for AP analysis essays, and I would just encourage you to look through this. He suggests 15 minutes preparation and then 20 minutes to draft the essay. I think that's really up to you as to how you follow that, but those are his suggestions. So whether or not you take 15 minutes preparation, that's up to you, but he suggests reading the question twice, underlining the important parts. I do think that's helpful. I would encourage you to underline the important parts. I think that's a good policy to use always. Then you've got the rhetorical purpose. You want to pay attention to that. What does he want you to do? What's the author want you to do? What is the author doing? The questions to ask. And there's some other ideas that he goes through here. I don't want to take the time to read everything in this, because you'll read it on your own, I hope, and I want to keep this video from getting any longer than it already is. So then you've got the drafting the essay, and this says with no time for general introduction, your first paragraph sets the angle for your analysis. Make sure your thesis statement and the whole first paragraph is direct and complete response to the prompt. And this is your introduction paragraph, which we've kind of also alluded to other places. Your body paragraphs, make sure that each body paragraph has a clear topic sentence, right? Remember, a thesis sentence at the end of your introduction, and I would suggest very strongly a topic sentence at the beginning of every body paragraph, okay? And then the rest of each body paragraph develops that topic sentence. The topic sentence should clearly support your thesis, and that's what the basic structure of every essay should always be in this context. Your conclusion, again, returns to the thesis idea, but in different words, and it extends the idea. This is what I've said about broadening it out to show the relevance of it. I think that's a good way to conclude. If at all possible, finish with a brilliant insight that ties your ideas together and at the same time flows logically from your argument. That's great. So then you've got some technical elements, and these are things that I think are incredibly helpful. I can't say that strongly enough. You need to have transitions that link your paragraphs. They will look, when they're grading your paper, for effective transitions as a way of knowing how careful a writer you are. So transition, sentence structure, vary your sentence structure, use parallel structure correctly, punctuate correctly, watch out for comma splices. It's the most common grammatical error that I see. Extremely important. Watch out for pronouns. The antecedent is not clear. Again, a very common problem that keeps coming up. But your sentence structure is important. Occasionally use a simple, short sentence for emphasis. I think that's a good trick to include. Conventions of formal writing. Remember, avoid any first person or second person. Avoid contractions, avoid colloquialisms, avoid expressions that are cliche or that are extremely limited to a particular context. So be careful with that. Grammar, very important here. Subject-verb agreement. try to keep your subjects plural so that your pronouns can be there, right? Otherwise, if you say, when someone reads, their understanding increases, that's incorrect, because you've got someone is singular and there is plural, right? When people read, right? Now you can use the plural pronoun. If you use the singular pronoun when someone reads, then you have to say his or her understanding increases, not where you want to go. Okay, so try to keep your subjects plural. Try not to end a sentence with a preposition. Word choice, okay, so be clear with your word choices. Avoid things like got, a lot, very, really, irregardless, recurring. Also, avoid, as much as you can, avoid talking about your essay in your essay. Okay. This says the words quote and quotation are forbidden. I think that's probably good advice, is to avoid those words. Then this here gives you some specific help, right? So instead of just using your terms pathos, the author appeals to the emotion of the audience when the author makes the audience afraid of the consequences, and so sways their opinion when the author, instead of uses logos, the author uses a carefully reasoned cause and effect argument, right? The author writes plenty of examples to support his point. That those are just good examples of what's going on, of what should happen, instead of what often does happen. Then you've got verbs to use, and these are particular verbs that you use when talking about the author, right? What is the author doing? Well, don't say shows, uses, and utilizes, right? Asserts, constrains, conveys, describes, elicits, enunciates, evokes, hints at, produces, refutes, transcends, reveals, masters, manipulates, juxtaposes, differentiates, depicts, connotes. All of these are better words. So make sure you know the definition for each of these words and be prepared to use them effectively in your own writing. Then, in talking about phrases that can be helpful, so presents a misconception that the author will correct. Reading through these can be helpful. Structure, development, so again, some phrases that can be helpful. Words on tone, so the tone was acerbic or cynical, the tone was contemplative or conciliatory, self-deprecating humor, reverent, poignant, feigned innocence. The tone was objective, the tone was exasperated. Each of these words are just better tone words than a lot of the more typical, generic, sort of inane and less creative words that are often used to describe tone. And then when talking about the author's attitude, there's also some words listed here that can be helpful. And what can be helpful sometimes is to combine these, right? The author's indifference contributes to his objective tone. The author's qualified enthusiasm reflects his cautiousness, or contributes to the cautious tone. The author's disapproval, okay, compounds the cynical tone. These are just some ways you could combine those. And this list is helpful. I think this is worth paying some attention to. So there you go, a few sort of a tool bag of resources that I think will be helpful as you make your final preparations.